Hello everyone, it's the Doom Dog. It's been far too long since I have done a big retrospective review. The last one I did was on Jak and Daxter over a year ago now. It's well past time I did the PlayStation 2 retrospective that I have been promising for quite some time. I am sorry it took so damn long, but join me as we take a trip back in time to take a look at the PlayStation 2 and see what made it so special. When I have done console reviews in the past, I would give you technical specs, I would tell you what the console was capable of, I would showcase some of the games for it, highlighting its library. I would do all of these things that you would expect from a normal review. I feel like there's no point in doing that for the PlayStation 2. I know it's a great console. You know it's a great console. Everybody knows it is the best-selling console of all time for a reason, at least at the time of writing this. The PlayStation 2 has a legendary lineup of great games and hidden gems. It served as a good DVD player capable of displaying in widescreen and progressive scan. It had some fun online games, and the online was completely free. Despite having lower tech specs than its direct competition in Microsoft and Nintendo, the right hands could work magic with it. The PlayStation 2 is deserving of its status as one of the greatest consoles ever made. If you are enough of a gamer to watch videos like mine, I'm going to assume you know this. This is why I will be doing something different with this video. I want this video to focus on the emotion the PlayStation 2 brought to us. I want it to bring up the nostalgia that we have tied to such an amazing console. With that in mind, you will not hear technical specifications or resolutions or how cool pressure-sensitive buttons were. You won't hear anything like that. Instead, you will hear about different games and why we love them. You will hear little personal stories about the PlayStation 2 and what made it so special to us all. Unlike previous videos, I will not be the only voice in this video. I will be joined by a very good friend of mine, Indy Timmy, who will be sharing his own story of this console, and I will have a few others join me for guest spots as well. Join us as we take a look back at the PlayStation 2 and why it holds such a special place in all our hearts.
What people will do for a little entertainment system.
It's midnight.
I'm here for the PlayStation 2. The best entertainment system to hit the world. It's gonna be great.
You had no idea at the time just how right you were. Do you remember the hype for the launch of the PlayStation 2? It was a fever pitch. And why wouldn't it be? The PlayStation 1 sold over 100 million units and revolutionized how we play games and how games tell stories. We were all incredibly pumped for what came next. People were lined up at stores all across the country, chomping at the bit to get their hands on Sony's new hardware, and it did not disappoint. Do you remember the touring PlayStation 2 truck? This was around 2002, and it was a diesel truck traveling around the country, stopping at various events such as concerts, festivals, and big sporting events, with a bunch of PlayStation 2 kiosks set up in the trailer for people to just come by and play. That kind of thing was such a cool way to advertise both your console and your games, and it allowed you to do it in a more relaxed, laid back, or more pumped up and exciting setting. This sounds like the greatest job in the world, doesn't it? Traveling all across the country, going to cool concerts, and playing video games with people on the regular. For many, the PlayStation 2 was their first DVD player. DVD players were still rather expensive at the time, and the PlayStation 2 offered a cheaper alternative that offered gaming as well. It served well as a DVD player, as it offered up support for widescreen for DVDs and some games as well. You could get yourself a pair of component cables for the PlayStation 2 and it would let you display your DVDs in progressive scan for a sharper picture and better colors with superior black levels. Composite video looked blurry and washed out by comparison. For those with access to a good audio system and higher end TVs, it was a real treat that the PlayStation 2 brought to the table. Did you watch movies on yours? I know I did on mine. For those that wanted an online experience, you could get that with the PS2 as well. For the original models, you had to buy a separate network port to connect to the internet, but the slim lines had it built in. Online play was free, and in my experience, it worked pretty well. I know I played my fair share of Killzone death matches, and it was a lot of fun. It also offered up an early version of an MMO on a console with Final Fantasy XI, which came with its own hard drive that you would plug into the console's hard drive slot. Did you play Final Fantasy XI or any other online game? The PlayStation 2 had some wild commercials too. The early days were full of some weird advertising trying to get you to think outside the box. And there was no better place to go for weird commercials than David Lynch. Who could forget the PlayStation 9 one as well?
New for 2078. PlayStation 9's new electronic spores tap straight into your adrenal gland. PS9 has improved retinal scanning. A mind control system. Holographic movie surround vision. And telepathic personal music. The ultimate just got better. PlayStation 9. Teleport yours today.
We still have a few generations to go before we get there. Live in your world, play in ours.
Well, Daxter, my old friend, it's finally over. We've answered the mystery of the Precursor Legacy, and we've defeated the last of our enemies.
He's mine!
The epic Jack trilogy is coming to its dramatic conclusion.
Okay.
Rest assured, it won't end like this.
Just lift your foot and I'll kick your...
For me, the most memorable ones were the Ratchet and Clank commercials. These were great.
That is Corey. He's helping us with our inflatable decoy test for Ratchet and Clank. Oh, man.
The inflatable decoy. One of 36 weapons and gadgets not fit for this world.
Alright, we're here to try out the lava gun from Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal.
Oh, nice shot, dude.
Lava gun. Yet another weapon not fit for this world.
Classic. What was your reason for getting the PlayStation 2? Did you get it for a specific game? Were you gifted it without knowing much about it? And did you fall in love? Did you convince your parents to get it so you could play games on it while they watched movies? Was it for a specific game? If so, what was the game that pushed you over the edge and get your own? For me, the game was Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty. My brother and I played the first Metal Gear Solid over and over and over again to the point where we could quote a lot of the lines as they were being spoken. So we had to have the sequel when it came out. Needless to say, it was worth it. What really made the PS2 special is the games and the memories tied to them. With over 4,000 games to choose from, there truly is something for everyone. I know I have my favorites and games that bring up specific special memories, and I am far from the only one. Joining me for this trip down memory lane will be fellow YouTuber Indie Timmy. We're going to take turns sharing memories and stories of this great console with you all. Did you ever attend any midnight launch of any game? I went to a few over the years. The first one I went to was for Final Fantasy XII. I was in full Final Fantasy fanboy mode at the time, so I had to have it as soon as I could. I got the Steelbook edition that came with the bonus disc, and I got the special edition of the strategy guide that came with an art book for the game. It was better when these were physical things that you could hold in your hand. I swear all you get now are digital art books. That's boring. Anyway, I remember driving to the store shortly before midnight. Boy, was I hyped. And there were several people already there when I arrived. It was cool to get to talk to other people that were just as nerdy as me about these games, face to face, as we waited for the time to arrive. We all knew that it didn't matter if we worked the next day or not. We would go in tired because we spent hours playing the game after we got home. And I did have work the next day. After talking with the other guys for a while, it was time to head into the store and pick up my copy. I was so pumped to get home and pop it in and play the game for myself. When I did, it was one of those holy shit moments where you are shocked that the PlayStation 2 was even capable of something like this. I was presented with a huge, sprawling city packed with tons of NPCs walking around, doing things. It blew my mind. I know it's not much, but it was special to me. This is the first time that I managed to get a Final Fantasy game on launch day, and I loved every second of it. Final Fantasy XII blew my mind when I played it back then, and it is still one of my favorites to this day. Hell, I like it so much that I bought it again when it was remastered on the PlayStation 4, even though I still have my PS2 original copy.
Growing up, my brother was the PlayStation kid, whereas I remained the Nintendo kid for a while, never really moving on to the PS1 except for Final Fantasy VIII or something. So when we had the PS2, it didn't really have anything that interested me until Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy X. So many people thought Kingdom Hearts was a joke announcement. All your favorite Disney characters mixed with Final Fantasy. That was such a wild concept back then, and it worked so well. Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy X are the two RPG games I really remember having actual voice acting, at least that I played. As a kid, getting to fight along Goofy and Donald was such a fun idea, and that's coming from someone who never really watched much of Mickey and Friends growing up. It's just this wild concept that made all of that so interesting to me. I remember having my brother help me with that Riku fight every time, because I sucked and was too dumb at leveling up right. That 15-minute unskippable cutscene is a headache. Real ones know what I mean. Whenever I think of the peaceful and fun side of the PS2, Kingdom Hearts and its menu music will always come to mind. It's a fun and easy pick up and put down game, with, to this day, a lot of fun, charm, and cringy humor.
Aye, Captain. They walk the plank. Every last one of them.
Grand Theft Auto 3. When Grand Theft Auto 3 came out, it felt like the industry changed overnight. It was like someone flipped a switch, and then there was the pre-GTA 3 industry and the post-GTA 3 industry. Sure, there were some open-world games before it, like Shenmue on the Dreamcast and Arena and Daggerfall on PC, but it was Grand Theft Auto 3 that set the standard for what open-world games could truly be. My brother and I did not get the game at first. It was a little while before we picked up a copy, and it was him specifically that bought this game. It was one of the games that him and I played together the absolute most. It did not even have a two-player mode, but we didn't care. We would pass the controller back and forth, playing until you died and passing the controller. The normal allowances were made for if you somehow died rather quickly, giving you only precious seconds with the controller. I do not know about you guys, but my brother and I spent a lot more time seeing just how much destruction we could cause before we died and trying to get the highest wanted level than we did actually playing the story. We spent so long trying to get 6 stars without dying, and just to see how long we could stay alive before we were gunned down. It was so much fun and hilarious. We never expected the military to show up with tanks to come after us. We always tried to steal them. There was a parking garage in the game that we could climb to the top of, and we would fire down at the police and random citizens below. We were convinced that this was the best place to survive our rampage longer and try to achieve 6 full stars. I have no idea if we were right or not, but it was fun as hell to try. I'll give you that. And when Vice City came out, we got to do it all over again. Only this time it included better music. The PS2 era of GTA will always be my favorite, and playing it with my brother is a huge reason why.
Extermination isn't talked about enough in the lineup of PS2 survival horrors. Extermination is a Resident Evil-like to its core. Fixed camera angles, tank controls, save rooms. What it had over Resident Evil, though, is an actual infection meter. In this game, you play as a soldier who isn't immune to the virus, going around in this secret winter facility. Every time you do get infected, you have to run back to the nearest safe room. If it has an MTS bed, that is. If not, you better find one. If you aren't 100% infected, you can lower it with consumable vaccines, but if you reach 100%, the only way to cure yourself is with an MTS bed. So you can imagine this makes for some very stressful moments, especially when something as small as the leeches can give you infection. I feel like as long as you play smart, though, the game provides you all you need to have a smooth and fun experience. I remember watching my brother play this game all the way through, and it was so much fun. I vividly remember quite a few of the monsters in this game, including some really strange winter dog-like predators that guard an entrance outside. All in all, it's a difficult but really fun survival horror that not enough people really talk about.
When my brother and I were little, our dad was a pastor at a small church in a Texas town called Decatur. When we were there, my parents made friends with other Christian families. There was this one particular family that my parents were rather close with, and these were people that I knew for probably 10 to 15 years or so. It was ever since my brother and I were children. I do not want to name names, but the father of the family was someone that we both looked up to, as they were very close to our family for such a long time. Well, the father of the family got in trouble with the law, and that is putting it lightly. I do not want to name names, nor do I want to say exactly what he did, so I will put it like this. He wound up in prison, and his hard drive wound up in the hands of the authorities. To say that this came as a shock to us is a vast understatement. It was hard to process. Here is this man that we had known since we were children. Here is this man that we had grown up thinking was an upstanding and very likable guy. This was someone that we looked up to when we were kids, and our views on him flipped in an instant. My brother and I were fucking livid. We were enraged. We needed an outlet for our anger, and we needed it bad. We went home, we sat in front of the TV, and we booted up the PlayStation 2. The game we chose was Dark Watch. It had a co-op mode that let us play through the campaign together. We sat there for hours just playing through the game. And it was the exact catharsis that we needed. It let us get out our anger, and it gave us a distraction from what was going on in real life. The game itself is pretty cool. It's a combo of the Old West and Gothic horror that combines to create a very unique feeling first-person shooter. It is a bit of a hidden gem, and I would recommend giving it a try. I hope Night Dive remasters it and puts it on PC and modern consoles someday. Regardless, it will always be special to me because it proved to be the exact right game that the two of us needed at the exact right time in our lives. I will always love it for that. Thank you, Dark Watch. You were there when I needed you the most.
I remember at a young age, my parents let me play some pretty violent games. Turok, Duke Nukem 64, Mortal Kombat, etc. Then when I was around 11 or 12, I see a commercial for this PS2 game, Manhunt. And in a pretty bold move, I specifically remember them showing some of the kills, including the crowbar being shoved in one of the crook's head. That was pretty ballsy for back then. Being the gore hound that I was at such a young age, it sparked interest right away, and my mom hesitantly bought it for me, already knowing it was violent. She had no idea. Manhunt to this day, I'm pretty sure is still banned in many countries for how realistically violent it is. At its core, it's a sneaking game, where you complete a number of objectives while trying not to get spotted, but some levels forcing you into shootouts though. Even the voice acting I remember during executions going above what you'd expect. Especially for the second one. I thought about putting the second one on here, but to me, the first game had way too much of an impact, and I had to put that one on here.
To stay home, Mr. Bunny, okay? Gather, my dark minions!
I worked at GameStop during the 2005 holiday season. You know that piece of footage I showed with the launch of the PlayStation 2 where the guy called the PS2 the greatest entertainment system to hit the world? Yeah, I worked at that exact GameStop in that exact mall for that holiday season. Others have shared many a horror story about their time working there. But I didn't stick around long enough to experience any of that. I was strictly a temporary holiday hire. Truth be told, they hired too many people to work the store over Christmas that year. So I didn't even get a lot of hours. While I was there, however, I was allowed to take home games from the store to play, provided that the store had more than one copy on the shelf. I thought that was the coolest thing ever, and you bet your ass I took advantage of it to play a few games. One of the other guys that worked at GameStop, a regular that worked there for a while, would talk to me about games all the time during downtime. What else were we going to talk about there? We talked about new releases, classics, modern stuff from recent years as well. He asked me if I had ever played Shadow of the Colossus. It had released that October, and I didn't even know much about the game at the time. I have to be honest with you, when he told me that it was just 16 bosses and literally nothing else, I thought it sounded boring. I was wondering why I should care, but he assured me that it was very memorable and worthwhile. He kept telling me about how great it was, and I did eventually buy into his hype. I grabbed one of the copies off the shelf before I left for the day, and I headed home. Shadow of the Colossus was unlike anything I had ever played before. From the first moment I booted it up and started playing, it was something truly unique. It captured me with a sense of isolation and its melancholic atmosphere. The long, wordless intro and its striking and beautiful visuals instantly grabbed my attention, and it would not let go. I rode out into the big, empty, but absolutely breathtaking world, and when I figured out how to climb up and kill the first Colossus, I felt like a genius. It was a somber moment, though. I could not escape the feeling that the Colossus didn't deserve it. I had never experienced anything like that in a game. Needless to say, when him and I were scheduled together next, I thanked him for talking me into picking the game up. I ranted and raved about how blown away I was with the game, and I picked up a copy of my own as soon as I could, so I could beat it for myself. I beat it, and I wanted more, which led to me seeking out Ico, which I borrowed from a friend and beat on my PlayStation 2. I wound up picking it up with the PlayStation 3 remaster of both games. They remain some of my favorites to this day. I will always be thankful for that short-lived working experience at GameStop for that one. It changed my perspective on what a game could be.
Psychonauts is the game that taught me to never judge something for how it looks. I was around 13 or 14 when this came out, and I remember me and my brother both thought it looked so dumb when we saw the commercial, and we had no intention of buying it. Then maybe a week later, my dad comes home with this quote-unquote interesting-looking game, and you can guess it's Psychonauts. My brother decided to play it first that night, and by the time we were in the coach's mind, which is the first level, we were hooked. The characters were funny and charming, the music was whimsical and Disney-like, and the concept of going into people's minds as levels is still something I love so much to this day. Going through someone's entire psyche and lurking through their baggage and finding figments of their imagination is just, I love this concept still. The Milkman level will always be one of my favorite levels in any game. Just the absolute absurdity of it still amazes me. My first time through it, I couldn't stop laughing. Even today, I still get laughs from it.
Feces. I am a sad widow. The dead people are underground, and I have brought flowers because I am sad.
And the sea shall run white with his rage.
To this day, me and my brother quote, I am the milkman. My milk is delicious. You can't beat this classic.
Take the line, sucker! Oh.
Ever since I was in high school, I have been something of an audiophile. I always wanted better sounding speakers and better stereos to plug those speakers into. I started with a fairly standard CD, tape, and stereo unit with 2 speakers, and it was one of those old AWA systems that everyone seemed to have in the early to mid 2000s. Mine had a line in, so I always ran the audio for my game systems through it. I mounted the speakers on the wall. Then I got a second pair of speakers and mounted those on the back wall of the room as well. I strung speaker wires across the ceiling and had 4 speakers plugged into the 2 speaker slots on the back. That did not last long, as I would get a hand-me-down Pioneer head unit with 4 speaker channels and an equalizer bar on the front. It was awesome, and I loved it. I replaced all 4 speakers with 4 bookshelf speakers that I still have to this very day, and it sounded even better. Eventually I decided I wanted a surround sound unit in my room, though, so I picked one up at a pawn shop. I got another set of bookshelf speakers so I could use one of them as a center channel, and I bought a cheap powered subwoofer at the pawn shop. At first, I just ran my consoles through the standard red and white RCA cables, but I read up on digital optical audio online. Well, what do you know? The PlayStation 2 is capable of outputting audio through digital optical. I made the trip to Best Buy because I just had to try it out. I got myself a digital optical cable and plugged my PlayStation 2 up with it. The first game I tried with it was the PS2 version of Resident Evil 4, one of the best games ever made. I distinctly remember running around as Leon in that area near the hedge maze right where you meet Ada. I passed by a fountain, and I noticed the audio from that fountain moved from the front speakers to the back speakers as I ran past it. Needless to say, this blew me away. I was stunned. I had experienced surround sound before. Of course, my dad had it downstairs, and I had watched many a movie with the family. But I had never even imagined what video games might do with it. Having the audio program to play in certain speakers in relation to where your character is was enough to blow my audio-loving mind. I stood there by that fountain just turning Leon in circles for a while as I listened to the audio move from one channel to another in absolute awe of the power of good sound design. I already liked horror games at this point, and this brought my love of horror to a whole new level. I love good sound design in games. And this was the first time I took special notice of it.
Silent Hill 4 will always be my comfort game, the game I go back to when I'm at my absolute lowest, because it was the game I played at the lowest point in my life. Silent Hill 4 explored themes of isolation I hadn't seen in other games, this feeling of being trapped and no way of telling someone you need help. I felt like that for a good portion of my life through my own doing and my own faults. I love all of the first 4 Silent Hills, including the ones after, not the Vita one, but 4 will always hold that special place in my chest. I would have full days where I would just sit in silence in Henry's room, listen to the ceiling fan, or put on music while I just stared at the room, or stared outside the window. I became a voyeur in this world that I actually felt almost a part of. The music is always by the amazing Akira Yamaoka, and probably some of my favorite songs from the series in general. Cradle of Forest is such a beautiful song and is underlooked. Walter's story is also one that stuck with me. A child abandoned by his parents alone in a hotel room, and a psychotic cult poisoning the child's mind. In the end, he never sees his mom, never finds that happiness, and depending on your ending, Henry is just mutilated, unrecognizable remains, still locked in your room.
The PlayStation 2 provided many more memories than just the ones listed here. If I were to talk about all of it, I'd be here all day, and this video would be the longest damn one that I have ever done. This console was something truly special to all of us that played it. In that spirit, I asked you all if you wanted to share memories of your own. I gave others the opportunity to tell their stories. And I am going to hand the floor over to you guys to hear what you have to say. Take it away.
Good evening, everyone. It is I, Shadowloaf, bringing some much-needed British class to the proceedings. Oh, yes. Like our boy Doomdog, I won't be focusing much on technical details or the nitty-gritty. I shall instead be focusing on a more personal story from one particular game. One that came to define my experience with the PS2, shape and mold my taste in not just video games, but in media as a whole. And, to an extent, made the man you see before you. Or hear before you, I suppose. Much like the game in question, my memory of when I first got hold of a copy of Silent Hill 2 is rather foggy. All I remember is admiring its gatefold packaging, which was a standard edition here in the UK, and reading the instruction manual in the passenger seat of my mum's car on the way back home, on what I believe was a typical autumn day here in England. Fitting, then, for the experience I was about to witness when I got home. Pop the game disc in, turn on my well-worn slim PS2, watch the introduction to James in the first cutscene, admire the neat yet rather disgusting details of the public toilets you happen to be in, just like home. Watch the second cutscene that establishes James's wife Mary, pick up the map in James's car, and move on to the second area, where you take the long path down into Silent Hill itself. And it's at this point, which I'm not ashamed to say, that the atmosphere and overall feeling you get from playing this section for the first time was simply way too much for my 12-year-old brain to handle. Taking the disc out, putting it back in the packaging, and tucking it away in the wardrobe, where it sat patiently, lingering in darkness for the next 5 years. Which speaks volumes about the quality of the game, the aforementioned atmosphere of it before you even delve that deeply into the horror itself is enough. And indeed is the one aspect I love most about Silent Hill 2. That mix of a familiar setting, perhaps one we see every day, but twisted and malformed into something else. Something far more sinister. Combined with an absolutely stellar soundtrack and sound design, well, you can see why a 12-year-old who's never actually experienced horror before may just be a tad overwhelmed by such things. I did eventually pick it back up, but through a slightly odd way. Afterwards, I had gotten quite into independent filmmaking, watching independent movies, reading as much as I can about the subject, even having a go at making my own indie movies, which never got past pre-production, but still. And also skimming through the DVD menus of my favourite movies to find making-of documentaries, which brought back memories about that game I played briefly years ago, lurking in the shadows of my wardrobe. Because along with the game, it also came with something very unique for a video game at the time, a making-of documentary DVD. Now, to be clear, if you wish to play Silent Hill 2 perhaps for the first time, I do not recommend you watch the making-of documentary before you play. Even the documentary producers themselves don't recommend it, and say as much in the warning message at the start of the documentary itself, because it does spoil quite a lot about Silent Hill 2. But it did serve to elucidate just what the developers intended to do with the game, how they intended to make you feel at any given moment. Rather than just simply make a horror game with vaguely spooky scary stuff that goes boo, really delve deep into what's actually scary. What affects every single one of us on some level. Whether or not it actually does affect you in that way obviously varies and is rather subjective, but that doesn't take anything away from their stated intentions.
psychological horror has to shake humans' heart, deeply. Shaking people's heart deeply means uncover people's core emotion and their core motivation for life. Everybody is thinking and concerning about sex and death every day. And if we want to scare or shake or touch the users or spectators, then we have to think about sex and death deeply to make like a death scene. Somebody died or monsters died, or if we made that kind of scene, we try to mix erotic essence. This is kind of a visual and core concept.
Well, consider me convinced. I had to play further into the game now, and oh boy, what an experience that is. One that, honestly, I think everyone should play at some point. Whether you're a fan of horror or not, it's truly one of those games that's so important to the genre and to games as a whole that it'd be a crying shame to let it pass you by. Perhaps you'll not like it. The gameplay is rather clunky and does have at least some flaws. But like any piece of art, there's always an imperfection. As Francis Bacon put it, there is no excellent beauty that hath not some strangeness in the proportion. Or maybe, just like a teenage me, you'll find solace in its melancholy world, comfort in the fog, become your favorite PS2 game of all time.
Hello, Internet friends. Skybound Snowy here. The PlayStation 2. The core gaming console of my childhood. It was released when I was about 5, but in the early 2000s, I only had kid computer games for my PC, often from cereal boxes. I loved those days, but as I grew a little older, I noticed that my peers all had video game systems that hooked up to their TVs, and were playing cool games that were not available for the PC. So I felt like I was missing out. In particular, I was enamored with Nintendo game systems like the 64 and the GameCube. In 2004, I begged my mom to buy me a GameCube, but money was tight, and she always leaned toward a no. There was also a game based on the Spider-Man 2 movie that I wanted very badly, but the PC version was dinky and completely different. I worried I would never be able to own the open-world console version. Then, I broke my arm that summer by falling out of a tree, and it made me depressed. I received lots of love and comfort, especially from my mom, which made those days easier. And I got my cast off my arm the day before my birthday. Finally, it was my birthday, and I was turning 9. I opened up my birthday presents cheerfully in front of my family in the living room. At last, there was one more present, a pretty big box. I opened it and was stunned to see a PlayStation 2 staring back at me. "I told you I wasn't getting you a GameCube," my mom said with a smile. I was so overjoyed, I bolted into the other room, crying tears of joy. I was so grateful and excited and overwhelmed. That PS2 was the best gift I ever received. Then I was given a few games to start playing right away. The Fairly Odd Parents, Breakin' the Rules, Pac-Man World 2, and Finding Nemo. And finally, I was able to buy games that I wanted, including a Looney Tunes game called Sheep Raider, and my beloved Spider-Man 2 game that I so desperately wanted. I paid $45 of my allowance money for that Spider-Man game.
So, let me tell you a little about swinging.
For the next 5 years, that PS2 became a core part of my childhood, and I made many happy gaming memories with it. Most importantly, I felt like my parents cared about my deepest wishes and enabled me to have something that everyone else had, so that I wouldn't feel left out. So that's what the PlayStation 2 means to me. It takes me back to one of the happiest times of my life.
Ah yes, the PS2. Truly a legend in its own right that we did not appreciate at the time. This is my personal retrospective on not only the system, but the games and what it led us to, because it truly was an era, one which defined much of what's come after, and in a lot of ways our lives. Hi, my name is Virtus, and I've been playing this for a long time, and I would like to tell my story. Years ago, I had a quick trip to a pawn shop. A little black brick with PS2 was written on top of it, and I dropped $75 and bought that and 2 games. It was more an impulse buy, burned on by having the opportunity to actually just enjoy myself. I was newly out of the house, had my own place, no real responsibilities beside work and bills, and thought, why not? I'd played on the PS1 previously, most of the Final Fantasies that I could get my hand on, and decided, well, there's this little game with a guy holding a blue sword in the ocean. Final Fantasy X. Why don't I give that a try? Oh my. I did not realize at the time just how life-changing of a thing this would be. That game was not merely a game. It was an opening of possibilities, a new perspective on gaming. Whereas previously, there had been a story, combat systems, much of the same of what you'd expect, Final Fantasy 1 to 9. This was a shift. This was not merely a game. This was a tale, a story. One that introduced you to that concept at the very beginning. As Titus crawled up a mountain, looked out over a ruined city, and said, "This is my story. Allow me to tell you, for I may not get the chance later." It was a life change, because I realized in the course of playing just how much storytelling had become a lost art. In the past we had epics, we had the Odyssey, the Iliad, we had Shakespeare grand novels by angry Russians, but that level of storytelling had never come into a game before, and it sparked an entire shift of perspective. It was a complicated story. It was one that was worth listening to, experiencing, gasping at, laughing with, and ultimately it changed a great deal, because I realized that it wasn't merely my game. It wasn't merely a story. It was a whole new perspective. That storytelling was an almost lost art, and it sparked me to write, to read everything I could get my hands on, to polish on how I use my voice, how I tell tales. It showed me how to tell a tale, how to tell a story, and it led to a lifelong pursuit and desire of storytelling, because so much of our lives are. This concept that you could tell a tale and have it be one that stayed with people was a change in my life, because it got me through a great deal of depression, it got me through a great deal of hard times, and it made me realize that this truly is our story. Life is a story, and I need to learn how to tell a story. It inspired me to go on and read everything I could get my hands on. It inspired me to write. It inspired me to view history as the stories of humanity and tell tales worth the retelling, because so few things in this life are. So Titus climbing up that hill, looking out over the ruins of Zanarkand, the stories that Oren shared from his perspectives, unique they were. A well-written character with Yuna and her relations with everyone there, her tale, tragedy and joy, a fond, bittersweet farewell to Spiro. These things changed my life, kept me here, kept me going. But more importantly, it gave me a goal to tell stories, to tell tales, to make history come alive in the minds and hearts of everyone around me. It's not merely a game, it was change. It was something beautiful brought into this world, and I don't think we will ever see the like. As we move forward in console generations, what I worry about is not specs, frame rates, resolutions, hard drive storage controls. I worry about what people are going to be inspired to write on, the stories they want to tell. And looking back at the PS2, it was an era of stories. FF10, even FF10-2, as odd as it was. Many, many great games came out of that era, and they all had that in common. They weren't trying to impress you with flashy lights, sounds, and quick gameplay. They were trying to give you a story and invite you to tell your own. And this is something which has been largely forgotten these days, but I hope will inspire more in the future. So if you're wondering if you should pick up either the little brick or the big brick, if you're wondering if you should experiment with some retro games, I absolutely would. Try some titles. The graphics are lacking. They're old and dated, but at this point, so am I. But just like them, they have a story to tell, as do I, and it will always and forever be part of my story, that little blue PS2.
The PlayStation 2 was not the most powerful system of its generation. It was outclassed in that regard by the Xbox and the GameCube both, but it left a bigger footprint on the industry than either of those did, and an arguably bigger than damn near any other console ever. You could talk about sales statistics, you can list off the great games, you could point out the innovative features of the console or ahead of its time peripherals. All this stuff helped define the sixth generation. But what made the PlayStation 2 truly special was how it united us all in love and admiration for this special little machine. It brought us friendships and new unforgettable experiences with unbridled creativity and wonderful stories that we all cherish for the rest of our lives. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you, PlayStation 2. Hey everyone, this was an experimental video. I wanted to do something different for it. Let me know what you think of this. Did you like this format? Do you prefer my typical console reviews? Really want to know. Big thanks to Indy and to everyone who sent me their stories. It means a lot. And I am so glad you all decided to participate in this project. I love this console. And hearing your stories means the world to me. Let us know your stories in the comments below. Give this video a like and a share, subscribe and hit the bell to make sure you actually get notifications from this channel. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later, everybody. Doomdog out.